Welcome to the Agency Navigators podcast. I'm Ro.
I'm Don.
And we have two very, very special and dear guests with us today. Guys, introduce yourselves.
I'm Chip Gibson, CEO of Deland Gibson Insurance.
Yeah, I'm Ted Gibson, president of Deland Gibson Insurance. Thanks for having us.
Oh, we are thrilled. We are thrilled. Here's a little trivia for everyone. Thank you for listening. Deland Gibson has been with us the longest. So they were one of the very early adopters of the AgencyCFO program. They've become very dear friends of ours, and we are just so thrilled to have them.
Absolutely. And a lot has changed for Deland Gibson over time. And one of those is how they are growing.
And the growth has been phenomenal, both organic and through acquisitions, which is what we're talking about today. Again, welcome, Ted and Chip. The topic for today is agency acquisitions day 2. Everyone always talks about, finding the deals, securing the financing, doing the due diligence, getting the deals closed. There are experts out there for that. That is not what AgencyCFO likes to touch, but we are there for day 2. What really happens after the deal is done? So for Ted and Chip, over the past 4 years, how many acquisitions have you closed?
We've closed 7 deals.
7. And that's just up until December of 2024. So we're not even talking this year and what you have planned.
No, not yet. Can't count our chickens or eggs before they hatch.
Exactly.
Bird flu.
Exactly. And when we get on our monthly calls and we look at you guys and we say, what are the agency updates? 9 times out of 10, we are waiting for Chip to say, well, found another one.
Yeah. And as you initially emailed us to chat about it, I started just putting my thoughts together. And some of my notes were, we lost about 3-4 in a row before anything got done.
Mm-hmm.
So it takes a while. It takes a while for us to learn what to do once you actually close a deal. So it was a little trip down memory lane, but a huge learning process through the entire scope of it.
I was reflecting back too. That is such a great point, Chip, because it wasn't, I hate to say it, it's become very routine for DG, as you guys call yourselves, to get these deals done. But early on, it was a real struggle. There were many calls and many ups and downs.
Absolutely. And I know that, we're talking about day 2. It's the aftermath. And I think your experience is so valuable to so many other agencies out there who are maybe considering doing their first acquisition. It's become routine for you. But for most agencies out there, it's new territory.
Yeah, I would say it's new territory almost every deal we do.
Mm-hmm.
As much as you try to set the expectations ahead of time, in the asset purchase agreement, a lot of stuff is laid out. But when you have an agency that's been doing it their way for a potentially very long time, day 2 is an interesting. You don't really know what you're going to get until you get there. It is a lot like onboarding a new employee.
Mm-hmm.
At first, you're kind of doing things as you think of it, but once you have you create a checklist and really bring people on from understanding the email signature to the phone system to the hours. A lot of the stuff I just take for granted as far as people work from 8:30 to 4:30 or whatever it is. And there's all these little questions that pop up. So Ted and I are grateful to have a really good team around us. So I think from the start, in the early deals, it was more so Ted and I getting involved and screwing a lot of things up. And to progress to a team that knows and can anticipate the questions that the new team members are going to ask.
Mm-hmm.
So it's go ahead, Ted.
Well, to Chip's point, like day 2 is just like onboarding someone. But I think what the difference is between day two of a acquisition or merger is that there's still a lot of unknown. And when you're bringing someone on to be, joining your firm, they've done a lot of research on you. They've looked at your website. They've, at least feel educated enough to come in and have a great interview. But with an M&A, the purchaser is walking in for the first time, meeting everybody. And, we try to lay out as good of a plan and a structure of what's going to happen, but there's still a lot of unknown. And we just have to give kudos to the team that's around us that can help answer questions we can't and help support people at the new firm in a way that we can. But I feel that that's still that's day two and beyond until they earn our trust and realize that everything we've said in day two is real. So we couldn't be having the success we've had without the folks that are with us on this.
Let me take it from a slightly different. Normally we're talking finances. And let me just bounce this off you. The finances are the one thing you kind of have ahead of time. So when you get to day two, day three, and day four, is it more about the operational challenges versus the financials? Because you've already seen the financials. You know them financially well. But as you said, it sounds like it's a lot of operational and maybe cultural issues.
So good question. I would say the finance side never goes away because as soon as you close, then you're in a window of really certifying how much revenue is actually there.
And how many times have you seen it not play out as it was originally presented in terms of financial picture?
Typically, it's pretty close. So through the due diligence, you can get a solid feel. But again, I'm not that type of a forensic accountant type thing. So we actually hire a third party now to go through it, where it's cross-referencing bank statements to tax returns to company reports, and in their internal accounting system. So we leave that to professionals, third parties that can get it within the cent, and they typically it's within. And there's typically a true up, but nothing. Ours have all been within 5% of the initial certified number.
And
within the APA.
Do you think so? Do you think that's the case because you have it certified, because you have this outside source looking at everything?
So we are the outside source confirming. We don't have an outside source to do it before we do a deal. We are kind of doing it on our own, where we're doing a little bit of the same thing. We're looking at tax returns, bank statements, company reports, and we're looking at it what they get versus what we would get through our splits. That can obviously be different, but we just want to make it professional. Ultimately, when we look for other financing opportunities, we want to have everything, all our ducks in a row, to show that we know what we're doing, that we've been executing on a plan that we said what we were going to do, and that the numbers all tie out. So that's why we use a third party to certify those numbers.
Just on your operational question, our philosophy is continuity is the best. And if we can maintain that for as long as we can, that in part keeps people at the new firm comfortable that, we're not turning everything upside down right when we come in. The two biggest changes we make, it's just around communication. It's the phone system and the management system. And then from there, we hope to learn, the process and procedures they have, and we hope to have them learn ours. And if the new firm does something great, we want to try to incorporate that into our day-to-day. So that's, from an operational standpoint, that's where we start. I think the hardest thing for our team working on this is just once they're onto our system, it's getting their information into our system. And that just depends on a lot of different factors, but that's the hardest thing. So we have to work two systems for a while, until we, probably through 12 months until we have a majority of their information. So that's definitely the hardest part operationally, but we don't try to make too many changes right away.
And correct me if I'm wrong, in most cases, when do the employees of the agency you're acquiring even find out?
It really depends on the situation. Sometimes, or I would say almost every single time, key employees know because they are running a report or they're doing something a little different and their antennas are going up. The reality of it is we'd prefer people not to know ahead of time because things can arise that could bring challenges. But it gets down to the relationship of the current owner and their team. And we've been from the start of negotiations, we've met people and gotten to know them, or we've met some employees after the deal's done. So we don't, ultimately an agency knows their people and they know the best way to do it. So we really trust and put faith that they're doing what's best for their people.
That's so when you merge the two, thank you both, because those are really incredible insights. So when you merge the two, that you're trusting the agency owner to know their people, and yet what Ted said about, we want to learn from you. Do you have something great that we can adopt? That really is the human element of day 2 and beyond, isn't it? Getting the new employees in a comfort zone with the change that is happening, and that they're actually going to end up better because Deland Gibson, DG, you guys have a strong culture. You have a very strong cultural identity within the firm, correct?
Yeah, we try. And we understand that any transition like this is really scary. And it's new, and there's a lot that people just don't know. So we try to take it slow. Like Ted said, within the first 3 months, really all we're changing is your email and your phone system. Then, the whole time we're still trying to work on moving to Applied Epic at some point. But we want to buy good agencies, and good agencies already have good people. So we don't want to screw with them. We want to foster trust, understanding, and show that we are a team. So we're not going to come in here and overhaul everything. We want to be thoughtful and learn through the process.
And the good culture shows just in what you just said, Chip. I mean, that's being a good steward. That's, good business owner, just a good person, which we know you guys are. When it comes to carriers and merging the books of business and the carrier contracts, weren't there struggles early on? And was that COVID and getting the Department of State to transfer codes? I vaguely remember some challenges early on with that.
Yeah, the biggest struggle we had was when the code was brand new to everybody. And then I think everyone was at home and just things slowed down, at least in the state of Massachusetts. I think they're home full time and they could only go into the office a handful of times a week to get the mail. And then it was just a really, really slow process just to get the licensing aspect of it done. But then from the carrier side of things, I mean, that just really just depends on their how many team they have there and approving licenses and changing them over to us. And I think other variables with this is just depending on how your state allows you to set up a new entity, whether it's an Inc. or an LLC, or in some cases just rolling right under like the Deland Gibson umbrella. So in Massachusetts, we're only allowed one DBA. So if we don't go to an LLC, we would have to roll it under Deland Gibson. And all of those, I guess, options you have do present some other, quote unquote challenges, but it really just depends on how. It's just like a submission to an underwriter. When you're submitting your stuff to the insurance company to have anything changed over, you have to have everything at once so they can process it timely in the way you want.
That's interesting. I forgot about that aspect. Yeah. So not only do you have the care, we talked about the human element. Now you have the carriers that you've got to contact and get everything in alignment. And Chip, you made mention earlier, your negotiated rates with the carriers may be different than what they had, just on volume or whatever. And Ted, you just brought in a whole nother aspect, depending on the state they're in. What are the state requirements for doing business and all of that? So I want to say, we've been with you guys for so long. The first deal was one of the first ones we've watched and sort of helped go through. I know you were doing a lot. You were looking at pro formas and stuff like that early on. We were a little more involved. But now you have an incredible team. As you've grown, you've added the team.
And I think that we could talk about that team a little bit. And I watched it evolve. And that's what concerns me for a lot of agencies who are considering in their first acquisition is, do they have the right skill sets to handle the aftermath? So maybe you could talk about, some of those elements. What kind of skill sets do you need to handle day 2 and beyond?
Yeah, so you got to break it down on the different areas, because the licensing and carrier side is one beast. The new employee side and onboarding them is another, and then certifying and confirming the revenue is another finance piece. So, and I would say in the way we do it, we have 3 different people doing each function. On the carrier side and licensing side, we have Lindsay Bauer on our team, who is one of the most organized people we know. And that it supplements and reciprocates Ted and I, because we are not that. And I know she's following up with carriers on a daily basis. Yeah. It is to get, and still you'll be 3 months after the deal, you'll have submitted all the paperwork and they're still sending direct deposit commissions to the wrong bank account. So it is frustrating. And frankly, the seller doesn't see that this happens on every deal. So then they start getting a little freaked out because they have a bank account they're trying to close down, that's getting deposits. And they're like, this is no longer, so there's some complexities there that happen every single time, but every single time it's the first time that person's experienced that. So having someone that has been through this process and can walk them through is helpful. And then having whatever department is primary, having the commercial lines team lead, personal lines, employee benefits go off and meet the people and help them. And from an HR standpoint, getting them all their paperwork done appropriately. Then for the most part, I will be running point on finance, on making sure the numbers are right. So yeah, we have, and then we have a 4th component. Jessica Cook is our magician with Epic.
I was waiting for you to mention her. I was like, you better mention her or she's coming after you. We love Jess.
Yeah. And she has the longest track, because it just takes a while to understand how the prior agency has done things in their agency management system. So she's had to learn special agent. She knew TAM. And those are primarily the 2 agency management systems we see. And then it's her job to migrate the data. So she's done it a number of ways, from using Epic to doing it herself. She's created bots that will then upload and get stuff into our system. So she's brilliant with that. And that's the heaviest lift. That is what takes the longest amount of time, because everyone uses their management system differently, and we want to get the most out of it. And sometimes you make sacrifices not to bring things over just because it's easier. And it's a new strategy every single time. Everyone's unique in terms of how we approach it. But Jessica really takes the ball and runs with that because she's really, really good.
Mhm.
Yeah, and this is what really what I wanted to hear. Great information for so many agencies that don't have that team. At day 2, they wake up with all of this work on their plate that they might not have thought about.
Mhm.
Thank you.
And yeah, that's what's really, really crucial to this is you guys have done so many, both successful and unsuccessful. You've seen it. And then I believe in our own tracking, when we do your reports, we will track some of your acquisitions separately because you've got covenants to meet or you're looking at their retention or whatever it is. So on our custom side, we'll track things for you.
Yeah, so that's challenging for many agencies
Yeah.
because money gets commingled. I don't know if any issues on that front. When the contingency money gets commingled, everything gets joined, it becomes fairly hard to keep them separate. Is that your experience?
Yeah, and it's been key working with you guys when you're keeping those numbers straight, because ultimately it'd be very easy to mush everything together and then not see deal by deal how they performed, because our organic growth is solid and that could kind of make everything look good. Whereas we want to know what locations are doing what. And we want to show that, ultimately one of our goals, our 3 to 5 year goals, is to have every location be growing by 15%. And if you couldn't track that, we'd be lost.
Mhm.
So, and we want to be able to go, like if we needed more debt at some point, we want to be able to show the financial partners that, hey, this is what a deal looked like. This is what we bought it for. This is what it was year 1, year 2, year 3, and show a return that is positive, because no one's going to want to give you money if you have failing M&A deals.
Exactly.
Good point.
That is really, the insights are phenomenal, guys, truly. And we knew that they would be. We just, we know you, we know what your experience has been. It'll be 7 years with us this August. So we've obviously gotten to know you guys along the way. Chip, you did bring up one point that I didn't have on my outline in preparing for this, is with these acquisitions, oftentimes you end up acquiring a new location. What's your geographic spread now? Pretty much from that center point, it's the home office.
Yeah, so from home office, the furthest away is Dennisport, which is on Cape Cod. And so it's about an hour and a half away from home office in Wellesley. And then this past year, we opened up a location in Worcester and had two agencies join up in Worcester, and that's about 40-50 minutes from Wellesley. So those are
in the opposite direction is Dennis Point.
Yeah, so Dennisport is southeast, and Worcester is almost dead west.
Yeah, Dennisport's probably about 100 miles, probably a little under that, and Worcester is 20 to 30.
Mm-hmm. So the challenges as you've acquired, and I know on some of our calls we've talked about this acquisition opportunity or that one. Is there a building involved? Is there office space? That really does become a part of your consideration with what deals you're going to really go after, correct?
Yeah, so Ted and I, I forget when we did it, but just like in sales, you put together an ideal client profile.
There you go.
And one of and so we mapped that out, and we're like, okay, what size does it need to be? What is the makeup of it? What is the, everything you could possibly think of. And we want to have any targets that we're talking with fit into that criteria. For example, for us, we find that there has to be a certain threshold for it to have its own location. And you can't just, for us, we find our model works when, it's over $1 million in revenue. $1.5 million is really ideal for a starting point to handle its own location, because we wouldn't be able to make the same returns if it was a $400,000 shop on its own.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one point. So not to say we wouldn't look at a $400,000 shop, but we'd want it to be closer to a location an existing location where they could roll in and work out of that. It also depends on what they're doing. Is it really heavy personal lines, heavy commercial? That's fine, but we want to maintain a balance. Ideally, we want people that have some specialty or the ability to do something really well. That's a lot of the times when Ted mentions, if we find something that people are doing better, it's because they have a specialty and are knocking it out of the park in a certain area. And that's really valuable. For example, the Cape Cod, that location shockingly knew flood pretty well. And they had different markets and a really good specialty around flood insurance. And that's been helpful for our entire agency, because if someone doesn't have the same amount of experience in flood, we can tap that resource of the Cape and work with them on that stuff.
So it's the layers of complexity. So we've talked about, it's got to be an agency owner that you're purchasing that you can trust, and with a strong team that you can trust. The geographic element, but also what specialties, what niches they have, how to track it financially, the technology, the carriers, the state. I mean, my goodness, you guys really have become masters of this process. I may not feel that way.
It is from the outside.
But from the outside, this is something really special you guys are building. And I'm personally grateful that we get to call you friends and we've been a part of the journey. I mean, we've had some fun together. We've had some laughs. We've had some really down, deep conversations and some struggles to work through just as a business owners. This is really, really incredible. Truly, the two of you have done something special.
Thank you so much for sharing today. Your experiences are just so valuable to any agency who may not be, who aren't doing this on a routine basis. Maybe it's their first or second. This is so helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. Any final words? Anything to add? I mean, you covered so much.
Yeah, I would say we appreciate working with you, and you sold yourself a little short when you said we don't do that in the diligence, but we never would have gotten the first deal done if you weren't teaching me how to run a pro forma the way you did. There is stuff like that because the banks were asking all this stuff, and we at that point in time may not have had the same amount of experience, and if we probably listened to this podcast ahead of doing a deal, we would have been a little more scared off. But we just jumped right in, and you held our hand and got all the things. It ended up working. And if it wasn't for your tutelage, I don't know if we'd have gotten that deal done.
Ted, how about you?
Thank you, Chip. He's the OG CFO is what we call him. So.
Ted, any last words?
Well, yeah, just to kind of give you guys another plug too, to piggyback off Chip. Like, you guys have been helpful through the M&A front and getting Deland Gibson organized on the finance front, but I think what has been very helpful for Chip and I is you start every call with what's new. And I feel out of that, it's just another perspective for us when you give us feedback on how you're interpreting what we're doing, seeing what we're doing. And a lot of what we've talked about, I think, has certainly helped Chip and I I guess get better at this M&A stuff. Things that you brought up, you've mentioned, we've incorporated into what we do. And I think you being honest and upfront with us is very helpful to where we were before our first, and now, hopefully working on our and more. So that's been very helpful for us.
Thank you. You guys are awesome. Truly. I mean, everyone knows me and knows that I love people and embrace, but there's a special few that are really close to our hearts, and it's easy to say why the two of you are. I mean, it is truly treasured.
It's been a great journey, and I know that this journey this is not the end.
We love seeing where you guys go next. Now we look forward to the calls like, okay, what are the agency updates? What are they doing now? It's going to be something.
Keep those holidays cookies coming, and I have more good words for you to say about your own podcast.
I will always bribe you with cookies, Ted. Hopefully this summer when we're back in New York, we can actually connect and see you guys in person. We are so, so grateful.
Chip, Ted, thank you very much. Thank you for sharing very openly. Thank you.
It is very much appreciated. And for all of our listeners, please follow us on social media, subscribe to our podcast. We're on all the platforms. Go check out the Deland Gibson website. These guys are super special and they are doing it right. So again, join us for our upcoming episodes. Reach out, give us feedback on this one.
And be financially well. Take care.
Take care.